New saviors are here, and the big question you should be asking yourself is, does Na help you versus Felix, or does Nagi outperform Fjorm? Let's get into it, and we'll talk about how we see all that falling out. First up, though, we have Askr, and I mean, we gotta love Askr, right? The art looks fantastic. He is, again, a colorless melee unit. It looks like an updated version of what we had before. I'd almost call this like an Askr 1.5. He does have a lot of really great things about him, though. This looks like it's made more as a melee frontliner, and you guys know how I feel about those. They're okay, but this one has a lot of support. And as a supportive melee frontliner, you can offer a lot to your team. So right off the bat, you have Slang, you have Bulwark. So that's nice, trying to keep folks from getting around you, but keep in mind if they have Warping, then this doesn't do much. Then for allies within 2 spaces of unit restores, okay, this is all a big way to say this unit has Breath of Life, which is really good. This has Breath of Life for both this unit and for the units around it. That's great because the C skill is taken up by a preference, and we'll get to that. If foe initiates combat or foe's HP is greater than 75% at start of combat, inflicts penalty on foe's attack defense during combat equals, just consider that 15. That's most of the time that's what it's going to be, and reduces the effect of deep wounds by 50% during combat, and deals damage equals 20% of unit's defense, including when dealing damage with a special triggered before combat. So they want you to be able to use this as an AoE unit, which is kind of neat. So that's good. Reduces damage from foes' attack by 20% of unit's defense. We love flat DR, and of course the Breath of Life effect restores HP as well. This has a lot of, this is going to be a very bulky unit. So keep that in mind, he's going to be great for that. We have a new beast special in Sturdy Beast. I am 99% sure this is going to be inheritable. So we have boost damage by X% of unit's defense when special triggers. If transformed, X equals 50, otherwise X equals 40. This unit will stay transformed, so that will be 50. If both of the following conditions are met, reduces damage from foe's next attack by 40% during combat. Keep in mind that's not pierceable. Unit or foe's special is ready, or unit or foe's special triggered before or during this combat, and unit is transformed, or defense is greater than defense -4. This unit isn't going to have trouble getting there, but for a lot of units, it makes this skill less usable for a lot of other units. Although I will say this is easier than some of the crazy things we've seen. Like these if-and statements get a little nuts. But I like this. This is good for probably the slower, bulkier beast units that you want to go in and just have smack things. But so far we have Bulwark, we have Breath of Life, and we have both flat and % damage reduction, as well as a great damaging special. So we have D bonus doubler here, and here's where it looks like they wanted to give you the option of making him an Omni tank. I don't think he's gonna perform that well in that capacity. So again, you're probably gonna want just regular bonus doubler, and that's probably what's going to get you through the matches here. Reopening is good, so that's nice. I think we all know. I mean, probably Lagoo's Friend 4 would be the best thing here, but you will have to change out the special, so keep that in mind. The big thing is Connected World, and the first thing it's going to do is make it a lot easier to transform. All you need is a unit from a different title, which is fantastic. And keep in mind, this triggers if you're in Aether Raids at the start of the turn. So this is not something where the defense has to wait for that to activate. Then we have at start of turn and at start of enemy phase. This does not include summoner duels. If unit is within 3 spaces of an ally from different title from a unit, grants attack +6 and resonant blades, resonant shields, and piercing to unit and allies within 3 spaces of unit for 1 turn, and also unit and allies within 3 spaces of unit if special cooldown is at its max, grants special cooldown -1. Askr really wants you to have his special. Now, if we're looking at the tier list, listen, we talked about support heroes. They are just nuts right now. Like tier 0, we're looking at Hathran and Robin, and this unit isn't there. That isn't what this unit does, and I'm a little worried with how this unit, as a melee frontliner, and even as an Omni tank, you've always got to ask how they do against Felix. This is a lot of damage reduction. It really is, but Felix also hits really hard and hits multiple times. I don't think this unit is going to kill Felix back, which is the biggest issue. And if Felix has Celica Ring, then he's just going to run circles around your team. So that makes this unit tough. What I've seen with melee frontliners and when they succeed best, even when they're at their supportive capacities and all that great stuff, they need to be able to outspeed Felix to take him out. If they can't take him out, then, I mean, problems happen. So I do have him in tier 1. We were kind of waffling over whether that's the right spot for him. I think that's where he lands, though. He does a lot. Like, this is a good unit, don't get me wrong. Any of the support heroes on this list are very good. You can ask Gatekeeper fans who are still using him and loving him. So keep that in mind. If Askr's your favorite, you can definitely use him, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun. I don't know that he's going to be tip-top of the meta, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Next, we have our demote, and this is a really good demote. Like, honest to God, this is Lethe. This is a blue cav, and I mean, we have a history of beast calves and them being interesting units that people don't expect you to have. The preference weapon is first, and you have Times Pulse and Slaying in here, so you're going to be able to proc specials pretty easily. At start of combat, if unit's HP is greater than 25%, grants bonus to units. Attack speed, defense res equals 5 plus number of foes within 3 rows and 3 columns centered on unit times 3. Most of the time it's going to be 14. Neutralizes effects that guarantee foes follow-up, so you get full no follow-up in here, and then you get neutralizes effects that inflict special cooldown charge -X, so you get that half tempo, which is really nice, and when special triggers, neutralizes foes, reduce damage by X%, so we have full piercing. That's a nice package. We have, if unit's HP is greater than 25% at start of combat and unit special cooldown is at its max value after combat, grants special cooldown +1 to unit after combat. You're going to be able to loop specials fairly easy with this unit. I mean, with Cavs it's a little harder, but with this unit I think you're going to have a good time with that. And then we have the standard Beast Transform, which has a lot of great things, clash and debuffs. This unit is fun, and I think if you're a fan of Lethe, I think there's a lot of things you can use with her. Gale Force comes to mind instantly. I would say the one thing that this unit is lacking is some true damage, so that's probably going to be something that you would want to get more damage out of her some way. That's going to be the challenge with this unit because units are so bulky right now. They just are. All right, now we get to Na, and this is interesting. So we have a near save here, and we'll get to the near save tier list in just a second, but right off the bat, you can see she's going up against Felix. Let's talk about Stone of Delights. We have Slaying, we have Adaptive Damage, we have at start of turn, grants special cooldown count -1 to unit and to an ally with max HP is less than unit's max HP. So you want everyone to have less HP than this unit. That's at start of turn, though, that she's giving special jump. Like, that's pretty great. And that's anywhere. So anyway, if unit is within 3 spaces of an ally, inflicts penalty on foes, attack defense res equals 5 plus number of allies within 3 spaces of unit times 3, max of 14. Most of the time, it's going to be 14. Then we have unit deals plus X damage and reduces damage from foes attack by X during combat, and X equals unit's max HP minus foes HP at start of combat, max of 16, min 8, including when dealing damage with a special triggered before combat, in which case X is calculated using HP before special triggers. Whew. Lots of stuff. That's a lot of damage reduction that includes burn damage. That is excellent. And also, if foes attack can trigger foes special and unit's res is greater than foes res +5 during combat, inflicts special cooldown count +1 on foe before foe's first attack. So we have Scowl built into the weapon as well, and that's very, very good. If unit is within 3 spaces of an ally and unit special cooldown is at its max value after combat, grant special count -1 to unit after combat. Okay, we're going to get into this. There's more to this unit, but I want to point out something really important here, and that's the fact that this weapon stacked with Breath of Life has the possibility of helping you a lot versus AoEs, and melee AoEs have become fairly common with both Sigurd and Felix, which those are our top melee nukes right now. So I keep in mind that is something that that's very interesting and something that you want to keep an eye on. This is a thing that we have to watch how she performs, because there's it's really hard to tell those kinds of things, and these are kind of interesting effects to look at. We'll get to that though. Armor Blaze. It's a good skill. It's better when you look at what else is in her kit. Earth Fire Boost 3, yes. Dragon's Scales. If foe initiates combat or if unit's HP is greater than 25% at start of combat, inflicts attack defense res -X on foe. X equals 4 plus the greater of the difference between defense stats or difference between res stats. Unit's defense res minus foe's defense res, max of 11. Usually when I read these, I read them as 11. If either of unit stats is less than foe stats, difference is treated as 0. That's an interesting one. We'll have to look at how that works. Unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack, which is really nice. Grant special cooldown count -1 to unit before foe's first attack, and reduces percentage of foe's non-special reduced damage by X% skills by 50%. So if you've been listening to me talk about near saves, and the problem with them right now is how much damage they're doing versus units like Alphonse or units like Felix. They're having a hard time finishing the job, basically. And this is a way to try to get both a double and have extra damage, which is fantastic. But it will be helped even further by the brand new save skills we have, which I really need to know how they score. That is going to be a big, big thing, and I haven't seen yet. If you have, let me know in the comments, and I will pin it so we can all know. If foe with range equals 1 initiates combat against an ally within 2 spaces of unit, triggers savior on unit. Same old right there. If foe's range equals 1, grants defense res +4 to unit during combat. Any reduces damage by X% effect that can be triggered only once per combat by units equipped. Special skill can be triggered up to twice per combat. So that is Armored Blaze can now take effect not once, but twice, which is a big, big deal. And restores 7 HP to unit when unit deals damage to foe during combat. All right, so the thing we're going to see is, and we're going to see another one of these very shortly, is Shield Fighter better with, say, Pavis in this case, or is Armored Blaze and Twin and Save going to be better? And the answer is, this is better if you can survive. I can almost guarantee you that Pavis plus Shield Fighter is going to give you better survivability. But it has always been a big deal where if you can survive and kill, regardless of how much HP you have left, that is way better than surviving and not killing, even if you have max HP. It's something we're going to have to look at, and it's going to depend on what unit you're looking at as well. As for this one, I think this is going to be a very good near save. What I am worried about, we'll look at the replay in just a second, is how this unit does when the opposing team has full no follow-up, which is fairly common now on Felix on offense, but is less common on Felix on defense. So if you're looking at this unit on offense, that's something that's going to be more available to you. Like this unit is going to do better on offense than on defense, just flat out. What this is really going to drive you towards is this is going to be better on newer units because they have more headroom. They have more margin to play with than your older units. It's just always the way it is. They have more preference skills, more stats, more all of that. So that's something to look out for. I do want to look at this matchup before we move on to the tier list. I know I've probably talked too much about this unit anyway, but it's really interesting to see this shift. Having damaging specials on your save is really good. Now, watch carefully. This is what I'm talking about, where Felix comes in, Bops Na does next to no damage. Na comes back with Armored Blaze and does just about nothing to Felix. Like that's just, I mean, tings off of him. Now, Felix is going to attack back. Come on, Felix, you can do it. Gust is going to proc, so this should be a bigger hit, and it is. But we stop there if Felix has full no follow-up. That's all that happens. And, I mean, looking at that, most likely the way this is going to go down is that Felix gets to move again, and smacks either another unit that isn't covered, but more likely is going to smack Na again. So that is an interesting thing, and I think on the follow-up hit, Felix has a better chance of taking out Na. Let's go ahead and continue this on, though. You see on that hit, Felix goes goodbye. So it's something to look at, and it's really interesting. We'll get all that. It's also interesting that this unit had color disadvantage and still did well, but I mean, saves are becoming such a necessity right now. Let's flip real close. Okay, so I have a tier list here, and I apologize. I even knew this was coming. I said near saviors were about to get a huge glow up because we had Felix and everyone else, and I completely forgot to do a near save tier list. So this is very last minute. I apologize. Normally I have done tons of sims. Each of these, believe it or not, has a ton of work into it that I do every time we have a banner. This one, the big question is this unit better than Gatry? And the answer is, it depends. And I do 100% believe that Gatry has better survivability. But if you've watched any of the replays I've done with him, he doesn't kill anything. Like, Shield Fighter plus Pavis is just not where it's at. It is fantastic for staving off the enemy, but you have to do some real backflips in order to actually kill things. I think Na is going to be much better at killing things. So, which one is better? It depends on what you need. I really do think that Gatry's probably going to be better on defense and probably in summoner duels. I think you have a high possibility of Na being better on offense. And if you're having problems with Felix, I think this might be a good solution for you. So keep that in mind. The others to look at, if you can get Amelia's speed high enough, I think she does very well. I still do see a very good use case for Edelgard, especially with Shield Fighter, but it's that same thing. Like, she's not going to kill back. So if you're having trouble with Felix on defense, it might be worth it to pick up Na, but I'm not 100% sold on her. So this is assuming she can take out Felix. Once we actually get to play with her, we'll see for sure. Next up, we have Nagi, and this is interesting, okay? So this is, for one thing, I love the art. They look really fantastic. You see right away an AoE's coming in and does next to no damage. So we have opposing stones, effective against dragons, slaying, adaptive damage, and DC. I mean, that's in that little paragraph. Like, that packs a lot in there. Then we have AoE damage reduction of 80%, which is fantastic. That is really, really good. Then you have the grants weapon triangle advantage versus colorless foes and inflicts weapon triangle advantage on colorless foes during combat, which right at this point is not a big deal, but is definitely a throwback to what Nagi does and is a lot of fun. At start of turn, if unit special cooldown count is at its maximum value, grants special cooldown count -1 to unit. Fantastic. If foes initiate combat or if foes HP is greater than 75% at start of combat, inflicts penalty on foes attack speed defense equals, we'll just skip right to it and say 14. It's a lot to read. There's some conditions in there. Most of the time, though, that's probably going to be at that max. And reduces damage from foes' attacks by 20% of units' res, so that's the flat DR. And after combat, restores 7 HP to unit. And also, if unit special cooldown count is at its max value, grants special cooldown count -1 to unit. Okay, that's a lot of great stuff. A lot of cooldown count, a lot of being able to proc Dragon's Roar very reliably. Grants attack speed defense +4 to allies within 3 spaces during combat and restores 7 HP to those allies after their combat. It's always nice to have that there. It's not going to, you're not going to break the bank over that, but that's nice. I mean, definitely nice. Dragon's Roar, we've seen it before. This is a great special, especially on this unit. This is the first time I have ever seen this happen. Maybe I could be wrong. You can let me know in the comments if this has happened before. Dragon Scales is on 2 units. So it's a brand new skill and it's on 2 units on the same banner. So It's interesting. I wonder if they had something else there and they changed their minds last minute. But I mean, this is the same thing, right? That extra cooldown, and you get extra damage and extra stats, and this is a good B skill. I'm curious how it stacks up. I think it does go well in conjunction with what you have here with the twin F save and all of that great stuff, and of course Dragon's Roar. But that is probably specific to very few units, this being one of them. Next we have twin F save. Our tier 4 save that I am desperate to know if it scores better. This is the same thing that you're seeing before, where you're going to be able to get damage reduction from Dragon's Roar twice, and that is very powerful. Obviously, brave units are going to have an issue with this, but overall, I think this is very good, and it's exactly what we talked about with Na. If you have headroom, if you're a newer unit, this is going to be a very neat thing to have. The other thing, and I say that, the other place where this is really good is in Arena, because you can't run Shield Fighter and Pavis or Aegis because you just simply don't have the score. Like, those don't score very well at all. Whereas Armored Blaze and Armored Flow, those do score well. So that is definitely another place where you can use these. And of course, since this probably scores higher than any other C skill on the planet, it probably helps out there too. Armors are back, and we'll deal with that as it comes. This is a really good unit though, and we're going to get to the Harmonic skill, and I am less high on this than I feel like I would have been a year ago. And the thing is, we have a lot of mobility. When you talk about Harmonic skills, generally we're not going to see much benefit from them in Aether Raids. You're really going to see them pop off in Summoner Duels because that mode is just better balanced for duo skills, just to be frank. They did a lot more, they put a lot more thought into that. Here we are finally. This is for unit and allies from same titles as unit grants. Attack res +6, resonant shields, neutralizes effective against dragons bonuses, and Warp Bubble for 1 turn and neutralizes any penalty and restores 30 HP. So this is really good for Summoner Duels, don't get me wrong. But the Warp Bubble for 1 turn is the portion that's not as good as it used to be. And put simply, we have units with so much range right now that 1 turn of shielding you versus Warp is probably not going to help you just tremendously. I'm not saying it won't help, and it's always nice to have this button just because, I mean, there are times when you need to burn an action so you keep units available. Warp Bubble is losing a little bit of value because of all of the crazy amount of range that units get right now. You look at Alphonse and Sharena, and of course we have Sigurd now with +2 range. So it is not as broken as it looks. The healing alone is excellent. The neutralization of penalties is great, and resonant shields, all of that's good. It's interesting. From there, we really need to look at the tier list, and I honestly believe this unit is not as good as Fjorm. There are definitely cases where she can be better, but the big thing you get versus Fjorm is the AoE reduction. The problem is I'm not seeing just a ton of ranged AoEs, and Fjorm is so crazy strong now where if you put Breath of Life next to her, a lot of times she just doesn't care, which is nuts. Fjorm is just still a nutty unit, and the meta hasn't caught up to her yet. So there is a good possibility that Nagi has a longer shelf life than Fjorm, because we've talked about this, but speedy tanks in general, be they far saves or whatever, they generally age quicker because they need more stats. Speedy tanks need all of their stats, whereas slow tanks don't need speed. So there's one dump stat there and you can put them in other places. Speedy tanks are usually higher up in the meta though when they first come out, because they do have all of those stats versus the units that they need to have them against. So right now I still have Fjorm over Nagi, but that's not to say she's a bad unit. Like Nagi, Harmonic Nagi is really going to be incredible, and I think if this is your favorite, you are going to have a lot of fun using her. I'm going to leave a link here to one of my favorite FEHtubers right now, and that's Sprinkles and Manic, the Goat Mommy podcast. They have just so much pure joy when they review things. It's incredible. I'll leave a link right here to their last review, and as soon as they get their newer one up, I'll have that up as well. Summoners, take care and schedule an appointment with your FEHologist real soon.